Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. I hope everyone's doing well and having a good day. I'm going to switch things up. Please like, share and subscribe. I'm going to say this at the beginning rather than at the end. And please continue to keep the comments coming. I respond to, I think, every comment that's made. If I've missed a comment or I don't get to see one, I do apologize. Sometimes YouTube holds up comments, actually. They put them in an area called hide, which I don't necessarily check every day. And that's usually because the YouTube algorithm has picked up on a word that it doesn't like. So again, just keep the comments nice and polite and, you know, it probably will make it through. But anyways, if I haven't responded to your particular comments, I do apologize. I do try and stay on top of them. Okay, let's talk about an upcoming fight. Next Saturday, April the 5th, at the Co-op Arena in Manchester, we've got Joe Joyce against Filip Hrgovic, or Hyrgovic, as somebody corrected me the other day. Apparently, I really butcher his name, again, for which I apologize. Interestingly, while we're on the subject of his last name, I've seen it spelt on BoxRec and pretty much most other places as Hrgovic. But I see that the Queensberry promotional material that's put out is spelling his name Hyrgovic. So I'm not sure if he's changed the spelling of his name or not. But anyhow, just something I noticed. I thought, oh, that's different to what I'd seen before. Well, let's start off with Filip, since we're talking about him. 17-1 professional record, 59-10 in the amateurs. So a good amateur career. Actually, both these guys have. He's 32 years of age. He's coming off a loss, which was a very, devastating would be overcooking it. A very unfortunate loss because he was the IBF mandatory and he was sitting on that mandatory for ages. But he lost against Daniel Dubois. Stoppage against Daniel Dubois. Dubois looked like it was going to be a loss for him. He ended up eating a whole bunch of right hands from Filip, and El Animal looked like he was on his way to a victory. But Dubois was fighting back, and Hyrgovic got cut over both eyes, I think. May have been from a head use, I'm not sure. I honestly don't remember. I'm not casting aspersions here. Anyways, the ref eventually, because the cuts were deep and they were bleeding profusely, stopped the fight. So the outcome of that was that Dubois eventually got emailed the IBF belt. He went on to defend it against Anthony Joshua. He's riding high. He's the IBF world champion. He's looking for a unification or undisputed with Usyk. His career has gone into hyperdrive, whereas El Animal is, suffering. And is part of that sort of, rebuilding process, I suppose. Prior to that loss against Dubois, he had a first round beatdown of a guy called Mark Demore, who really shouldn't have been in the ring. I think it was at the Riyadh season. Wasn't the 5x5? I can't remember what it was called. They called it something. It was in Riyadh season, and Mark Demore was battered in the first round. Total mismatch. Hyrgovic, almost probably didn't need a shower afterwards. Day of Reckoning, I think it might have been called. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. They name all these fights now like they're movies. Prior to that, it was a 12th round TKO of Dempsey McCain, who, of course, Moses Atama absolutely destroyed in Moses' last outing. And then prior to that, in 2022, Filip had what is undoubtedly the best win of his career, a unanimous decision against Zhilei Zhang. Now, I won't say it was controversial, but there were questions. And a number of people thought that Zhang had done enough to win. So it was by no means absolutely like a conclusive victory. It is on the books, of course, unanimous decision. But people were saying, he might have been a bit lucky to get that. Regardless, he got the win. but that is the best win on his resume. So his resume isn't that strong, even though people have spoken very highly about him. One YouTuber that I like to watch calls him the heir apparent to the heavyweight crown. And I think that might have been sort of overstated. Nevertheless, he's got a number of strengths. Got a very good jab, very good right hand, well schooled, very good amateur record, like I say, and an absolute iron chin. Weaknesses, people have questioned his stamina, and I think that's fair. I think the bigger weakness is, generally people would call it heart, but that might not be right. What I mean is, I'm not sure what his attitude is. He doesn't strike me as having the hunger, the ambition, that desire to be, I am going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. That he seems almost a little kind of almost ambivalent about it. Like, if it comes, like he's very laid back in a way, which is kind of weird because he comes across sometimes as quite arrogant. You wouldn't expect the two to be in the same body. So I'm not sure how much desire he has. I might be wrong, of course. This is just one guy's opinion, right? But he doesn't seem to have that fire that you see in some other boxers who are, focused. I'm going to win the belt or die in the attempt kind of thing, right? He doesn't seem to have that. He's like, if it comes, But anyhow, enough said about that. Let's look at Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is 39 years of age. Amateur record 52-11, so very similar. One more loss and a few less fights compared to Filip, but both good amateur records. 16-3-0, so he's 19 fights overall, very comparable number of professional fights. His last outing was July last year, and he lost to Derek Chisora. Unanimous decision, but he was dropped by Chisora in the 9th round. That probably swung it Chisora's way, but he was dropped by Chisora. Prior to that, he had a KO in his last round against Cash Ali, who's journeyman. And then we come to 2023. 2 back-to-back losses against Zhilei Zhang. And these were watershed losses in my view. In the first fight, he was stopped in the 6th round of the 12-round contest. And he was, of course, the WBO mandatory at the time. So again, just like with Filip, they kind of buggered up a pole position for a belt. It was the accumulation of punches damaged his eye. He basically, Zhang couldn't miss. He just, he may as well have had a big flashing sign on him, like, hit me here. He gets a rematch. Hindsight's 2020, always right. Probably should have done something different. But he gets a rematch, and this time he's knocked out cold in the 3rd round. Boom, straight down. Those losses took something out of Joe Joyce, in my opinion. And they took years off his career, in my opinion. And it remains to be seen whether or not they have any long-term health effect on him. They were seriously, really, really, really bad losses. Prior to that, the juggernaut was spectacular. He KO'd Joe Parker in the 11th round back in 22. Prior to that, he TKO'd Chris Hammer in 4, TKO'd Carlos Takam, who's a tough fellow, in 6. And prior to that, he had TKO'd Daniel Dubois in 10. Like, at one time, if you were looking at Joe Joyce, you'd have said he was somewhere between the third and the fifth best heavyweight in the world. You know, you'd have had, let me see, well, you've had Usyk, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, Joyce, if you were wanting to say he was fifth, but you might well have put him above Wilder, and you might actually have put him above Joshua. You know, like he was really right there in the mix as a top 5 guy, and behind him you might have said, you know, Zhang, I suppose. So, you know, Joe Joyce has definitely fallen down the ladder, hasn't he? Strengths, well, it used to be power. It used to be an absolutely impervious to punches chin. Like his style was come forward, take 3 or 4 to deliver one, but when you delivered that one, you knew it was a big one. He also had very good timing. He was never fast. No one's ever said Joe Joyce is fleet of foot or fleet of hand, but he had good timing. Now I would say that those strengths are no longer there. I'm sure he's still got the power, but he doesn't seem to have the timing, and he's slow. In my view, he's carrying too much weight. I think he should be at least 2 stone lighter. So what's that, 28 pounds? So let's say 30 pounds, round it up. I think he should be 30 pounds lighter, to be perfectly honest with you. His weakness now, well, slow, and slower, right? But the biggest weakness now, I think, is maybe his punch resistance is gone. So that's, you know, it was a strength that's now become a weakness. How do I see this fight going? Well, as you know, I've said on this channel many times, I worry about Joe Joyce's health. I worry about taking more punches, because I think that he has slowed down his speech and he is prone now to having what I call a cognitive lapse, which is worrisome, particularly, you know, for a person who's not quite yet 40. Anyhow, so I kind of hope that he loses and retires. I would like to think that he has got enough money in the bank and he's got a good education. He can go and do other things with his life rather than risk potentially life-altering injuries. If he does lose this fight, I think he will retire. I mean, because there would be really nowhere else for him to go. And at 40, it's hard to rebuild. I think he will lose, and I think it will be a stoppage in about round 7, 8, 9. If, on the other hand, he wins, no doubt he will go on and he will fight somebody else. And we'll probably be having this conversation about him hopefully not suffering further injuries with respect to another fighter. If Hyrgovic wins, then he's sort of back into the mix a little bit. He would then probably be taking on a higher ranked contender, trying to work his way back up to a position where he can at least be within the same area code as a belt opportunity. If Hyrgovic loses, well, then it's back to rebuilding. He's 32, so he would have some time to do so. The question then is one that I asked a few moments ago. Does he have the heart for it? So it'll be an interesting fight. I would normally, like I say, be absolutely cheering for Joe Joyce, though in this case it will be hard to cheer for somebody who you want to retire, kind of thing. But it will be an interesting fight. I look forward to it. So next Saturday, April the 5th, Co-op Arena, Manchester. If you've enjoyed this video, I said all that stuff at the beginning. Anyway, you know what to do. So I will see you on the next video, and make sure wherever you are in the world, you have a fabulous day. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.